timer or whatever. That's right. Okay.
Do the timing? It's the countdown. The countdown. Final countdown.
Is this how we do the count? Is this how we do
Yeah.
counting? Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Alright, so 5.
Sorry, we'll start that again.
Okay. 5,
4,
3,
2,
1.
yay!
Yay! Hello and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a podcast where we talk about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might include it in our role-playing campaigns. Welcome, I guess, to season 3 of What Am I Rolling? I know, and with me, we just discussed it. I've just decided regular guest host now. You've upgraded from guest to regular. Is Hamilton. Hello, Hamilton. How are you?
I'm now infinitely nervous. It's fine.
Why?
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, because now I'm upgraded. I feel like I need to upgrade myself. I need to level up. Okay, quickly. I'm doing this now.
You doing it?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm done.
Okay,
I've done it. I'm fine now. It's okay.
That was a quick patch. Okay.
Yeah, just add Matrix download. It's fine, easy. I know Kung Fu. So...
Yeah. Oh man, the new trailer for the Trinity films. Trinity films? No, Matrix films. But I think of them as the Trinity films.
So clearly, we're seeing the inner workings of how you see the trilogy.
I do. Yeah, the new Matrix trailer looks amazing, so I cannot wait for that. So
it does. I don't care if it's gonna be bad. I want it. Then I want to watch it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. How are you though? What have you been up to? Anything exciting or interesting?
Well, on a D&D front, I just started playing in a Curse of Strahd campaign.
Ooh, exciting.
Like every other person in the world, I finally turned up 3 years late to the party. But yeah, it's we've only done one session and it's really fun. It's not for recording, so it's actually quite nice. But everyone in it most people in it are from other shows and stuff. So there's a lot of good role playing in there, and we're having a lot of fun. And I'm playing a Shadar Kai and one of my homebrew paladin race classes.
Exciting.
Which is which is basically like a Dark Souls in themed sort of it's called Oath of the Veiled Shadow. It's all very dark D&D.
I love it. Yeah.
And
again,
it's sorry. Yeah.
No, I was going to say Dark Souls is one of those games where I'm like, at some point I should sink my time into it, and I've just never got around to it. But all I ever hear is good stuff about it. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to just be constantly defeated. I like games where I have a chance of winning.
But a brief thing on it that I noticed, it really taught me how the brain works. I know this is really strange, but it's I figured out that I think I did some research on it because I was like, this is weird, this is working. Which is if I play the boss and I do a couple of rounds and I die a few times playing it, then I go to sleep. And I'd wake up in the morning and play it first thing, I'd defeat them straight away. Yep. And that is because your prefrontal... I don't know. If there's biologists out there, they're going to ruin this my mansplained understanding of this.
No, go for it.
Is that I think prefrontal cortex, basically when you're sleeping, plays over in the background your challenges of the day. So it's just doing all the work and figuring out how that monster works so that when I turn on the game in the morning, I just defeat them straight away. So the trick is
pretty cool.
Just play it a few times, don't worry about it, and then you'll win in the morning. So don't worry.
I will take that on board. I've definitely done that where I've had a riddle given to me and then I've slept on it and I've gone, it was Shakespeare or something like that in the morning.
Yes.
And then had to write it down before the next session or something like that. No, absolutely.
And if someone's next to you, what are you on about? Yeah,
it's that thing. Again, we will get onto our topic. I know it's how we start all our episodes. Is talk about no, it's fine. But when you're it was what's he called? Frank Skinner, comedian, also sung not This Is England. Football's Coming Home. This Is England is something completely different.
Yeah.
But he said he has this thing was if he can't remember the name or something or the word or something, he won't Google it. He will just think about it. And he couldn't remember a word for the thing you use on your tablet. That's like a pen but not a pen. And he spent maybe 20 minutes, he's like, I don't know what it is. And then, interviewing about something else, and he just goes, stylus! Really loudly. And then he just went, yeah! Ran around the studio because he remembered without Googling. So that's how I always remember, I always had that feeling, is that stylus feeling is how I remember it.
It's the stylus feeling. I like that. I'm going to take that. Yeah. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, so don't Google, just work on it solidly,
I
and like
try and
or
do
sleep
that.
on it. Yeah.
I try and do that, and then I give up after 10 minutes of just sitting there and realising I'm not doing anything else but going... So, yeah.
Anyway, Hamilton,
Yes.
what are we talking about today? What is
Ooh.
our topic of choice?
Our topic of choice is a special one, and we're recording this on the day it came out, so this is hot off the presses. The Wild Beyond The Witchlight, the new D&D campaign adventure booklet that's just come out. Yeah, very exciting.
The new adventure. It is... I mean, if you've been following any D&D stuff recently, any of the channels stuff, they have been hyping this one up quite some time. There's been lots of little videos out. There's obviously got they've got this D&D celebration coming out this weekend.
Yes.
Next weekend? Soon. In the this weekend. Yes, it is this weekend.
Yeah.
Sorry. Time is a strange thing, which is true in the Feywild.
Hey, that's the thing. We're all playing these
saved it.
games right now. Exactly. Pre-recording and what day is what. Yeah, it's all very...
Who knows? But yes, so it's very exciting. It is a brand new adventure set in the Feywild, which is obviously a D&D plane of existence that sort of came out, I think, in 5th edition. That's when it sort of first sort of materialised, so to speak.
Is that right? Okay. I think that's right.
Oh, I was going to say, do you know the otherwise? That would have been...
I think it was around even in...
There you go.
Around in the other ones. I'd have to Google it. See.
Oh, well, I'm just going to go for it. But essentially, I think maybe what I'm saying is that this particular domain of delight itself, so Prismeer, has only just come out.
Yes.
So maybe that's what I'm going to talk about. But yes, so the idea behind this, if I do a quick summary, is that you are adventurers that sort of go to firstly this carnival, or the Witchlight Carnival, and it's been described as sort of a sandbox where you can sort of play around for a little bit, get used to your characters, get used to stuff, and then as a sort of this sort of Fey crossings, we on the podcast before we have talked about crossings over into the Shadow Plane and into the Feywild. The Witchlight Carnival is a crossing for going into the domain of Prismeer, which is currently under some complications, I guess is the thing. So the main sort of archfey who runs it, similar to how there is a dreadlord running the domains of dread, is currently missing in action, and as a result... I should say at the top of this, spoilers ahead.
Oh, yes. I'll do a big spoiler. Yeah, we'll do that there. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so we'll be spoilers. Obviously, these are our first impressions and stuff. We won't be doing too much of a deep dive into stuff, but this is just sort of the sort of surface stuff. So the main archfey is missing in action, but as a result, 3 hags from the Hourglass Coven have split Prismeer into 3 sort of separate areas: hither, thither, and yon. I love again as you will go through this, and I'm sure we'll gush about everything about it, but it's that idea that you can go through all these 3 different states, solving a mystery, as it were, and going from a place of delight and into going to see the Feywild itself, which is a place that's been described as sort of whimsical and fun, but also you must be cautious, otherwise you could just disappear forever in it. So
that is the thing. You mentioned that the coven has caused these splits because of the 3, the 3 of them. I was listening to Chris Perkins talk about it, and he was saying that obviously the Feywild is so emotionally reactive. So if you're there and you start crying under a tree, I think he said that then suddenly the tree might start sagging and dew might start falling from it, or rain might start falling on you. But if you're a powerful being, and the more powerful your level and character is as well, the more and greater your influence is. So these coven have caused this split because of their emotional involvement on it. Which is quite, I just know, it's kind of lovely. I don't know, it's just a lovely way of just making that real concept of it being very apparent from the beginning and making you very much aware of it, which is quite nice. And
yeah, absolutely. This idea of like the Feywild's magic, the way it draws its energy is from your own emotions and being infused with that. And it has that, and the carnival itself. Again, I'm sure we'll go into more detail about it, but your actions in the carnival impact on the emotions that is. So if you're happy, positive people, if you're polite, if you're having a good time, then the emotions are really happy. Everything is brighter and everything is wonderful. However, if you're very rude to someone, without a bit brush with someone, then things get a bit sour. The lights dim a little bit and stuff like that over the course of the time you're there. Which I love that. Yeah. And it's maybe it's just that idea of you guys having auras, and it's just you can see the effect of it more immediate than maybe we would normally be privy to in real life. So.
I love that. I really do love that. It's just so evocative of, like, as it says, like fairy tales, but also that sort of, I don't know, it's just sort of that dreamlike nature of it, that because that's what dreams are as well. They're so emotionally reactive, aren't they? So there's something just lovely that it's, I don't know, it hits me. I don't know, for me it hits something quite deep. I feel there's a real, already you're involved in the story, and the sort of the setting becomes very much apparent to you because of that. Sort of like you can relate to it so easily. That's what I like.
And I think it's interesting that this has come out now after we've obviously had, and I always say this, my favourite book, that is to hand at all times, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which is obviously all dealing with horror and stuff. Yeah. And this obviously is such a big step away, and maybe to an extent where people will be like, oh, I'm not so sure I'd be keen on this, because obviously at first glance, I'm sure we'll sort of talk about it, feels very light, it feels very beautiful and sort of airy fairy, and maybe that's not for everyone, just as horror is not for everyone as well.
Yeah.
But I think they've done stuff with this book, again, from our first sort of look at it, that it's just really, really intriguing, and I just genuinely can't wait to get a proper deep dive into it. So I guess to start us off then, Hamilton, is there anything? What's the thing that stood out to you the most about this book?
Well, I think the first thing, and I said this, the first thing that struck a chord with me immediately on top of all that sort of emotional thing is that what they've done with the artwork. I think the artwork is incredible. So I am going to switch our cameras. And it shows the wrong bloody thing. I'll edit that.
We'll edit that out, but I'll do my reaction.
There you go. We'll go back. We'll go back again. We'll go back. And then it's the artwork, and it goes like there. So there's one of the covers. There's the one cover that we've got there, and then here's the other one. So that's the sort of traditional one, and then the sort of was it called the special edition? I don't know if it's
I believe these are the ones. The alternate covers are the ones that you can get specifically in game stores, so you have to go and pre-order them there and stuff. And they've had them for other ones like Rime on the Frost Maiden, the one for Salt Marsh and all that sort of thing. And these ones look beautiful.
They are beautiful.
The cat one looks just very evocative, and I love that. I really would love it if they had like podcast. They had poster versions of it. It would be
I totally really agree. Cool. I think that would be an awesome thing. I love the little ticket stub detail they've got around the edge, which is really nice. And then generally, I was going to just find. So these are just for everyone. Here's some of the artists on here, so you can see who they are. But unfortunately, and this thing I was talking about before was that what would be really nice, D&D Beyond, is if you could put for each artwork, and I don't know if this is because of legal reasons or anything, but it'd be really nice to know who does what artwork, because it'd be nice to be able to when we're doing these sort of things, to say, hey, this one's amazing. But I think if I just go to what was the other? If I start the carnival owners is a great one. If I just start with their imagery, like even like that's Mr. Witch. It's just so Victorian and great. And then the other one, this sort of really beautifully lined drawing. You know, the sort of I'm going to use a very artistic term here, the arabesque of that drawing, which is the line that they follow. It's very cool, and it's just really, I don't know. It's all very carnival, and the map. I mean, look at this map.
Like, the map's amazing, having those cartographers there, and I think what quite like when you as you say, is that Mr. Witch and Mr. Light are sort of the owners of the Witchlight Carnival. They are so different, and instantly from those images you get this real personality from them. You can tell instantly. What's interesting in this book, they do give you role-playing cards, so you can get a card and it says so like you're not flipping back and forth between the book or looking on D&D Beyond. You can just have a card saying, this is how Mr. Witch is like, and here's how Mr. Light is like. I
really did like that as well. I want to pick up that as a general really great part of this, that it's just because it's and we were saying that role-playing in D&D has become much more prevalent in just home games even, which is great, and I love that, and it makes it so much more richer experience. And so that's really been seen. You know, we'll talk about another part of this story that really affects that. But that role-playing cards are really useful for people that want to really deep dive into that sort of play, which is really good. I think these are sort of other just images without giving away too much about who these are. I'm just going to scroll through them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just look at. I don't know, really some really realistic and some just very graphical.
It is every time I look at any D&D book, and I just go, oh, this is beautiful art, and that's why I always do try and buy the book as well as D&D Beyond. I again, I'll do a bit of a self plug here at this moment, so apologies in advance. But I actually interviewed for Dragon Plus magazine, so the official Wizards of the Coast magazine, Trish Yockham, who is one of the senior graphic designers, who essentially her job is to put together all the artwork in a book. So they'll get the brief and they'll get a feel of the book. And here in this particular book, in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, she was like, it's whimsy, there's magic, there's fairies, and she was just like, I want to see butterfly wings. And she asked that to be a sort of big motif throughout, which it is. And you see how the carnival comes into places, like the carriages with wings. To get into the carnival, you need a ticket. And if you get a ticket, you also get wings to wear so that it shows you have a ticket. And it's, again, that idea of just these sort of fleeting, beautiful butterfly wings, which she said when she was doing research for it, every butterfly, every sort of species has its own unique butterfly wing shape. Which I thought was fascinating. I just like that as a concept, that everything is always individual, like a snowflake and all that sort of thing. And it's just, there's just something very magical about that. And I can see you've got like the map up as well. Like again, you got obviously the carnival map, which is obviously great because then it's almost like a Disneyland map or any theme park map, which I absolutely love. Where it's all sort of characterized and stuff like that. And then on the other side, you've got Prismeer and hither, thither, and yon, and the personalities of each of them come out really well.
Exactly, they are great. I was wondering if I could find the hither, thither, yon bit, but I don't know if it will show me the map. I don't want to give too much of this away.
Exactly,
there it is, yes, there it is. It's just a lovely map.
Yeah,
and I love the Disney castle in the middle. That's sort of very, do you know what I mean? That's sort of just, and what great names! Like seriously, just. It's what's his name, Terry Pratchett-esque as well as that sort of very English little bits of wording to make into places.
Absolutely. So that castle in the middle is called the Palace of Heart's Desire, and that is where the climax of the adventure ends up at. So you go to all these three places, and then you go to the palace to sort of end the adventure there. But yes, again, very Terry Pratchett. From looking at it as well, I also got vibes of stuff like Never-Ending Story.
Yes.
Even Labyrinth. Stuff like Labyrinth, of course. I know we know that is a big sort of influence on this from the Chris Perkins interview. But the other one I wrote down was stuff like Roald Dahl, so like James and the Giant Peach. The idea of like there's an image again because I don't know who the artist is. I'm sure if I looked, I'm sure I would have. But there's an image of a swamp gas balloon, hot air balloon, and people falling out of it. So it looks very much like Giant Peach-esque, and people holding on to stuff, and very Labyrinth, very Jim Henson, so Dark Crystal, all these things. And it's just, I love that as a fantasy setting. It's like it's not high fantasy with knights and shiny armor, going across on horses and stuff. It is the bog of eternal stench. You have Sididamus on a Dulux dog, an old English sheepdog, and you have all these other creatures and stuff. Just really interesting.
There it is. I mean, I totally agree, and the thing is, you were saying like Ravenloft is your kind of sort of fancy sort of horror focus. I like my horror, but not I like it to a certain point. But this is more my cup of tea. Like I like this sort of just like sort of whimsical, just sort of slightly out there, very high concept, but just and like everything having like really extreme versions of what they are. Do you know what I mean? Sort of like overly over the top, sort of hyper real and all that sort of stuff. I really is. Yeah, it's really great. That sort of and the three places look beautiful in that image as well. They're just sort of already can see all the differences. Very like
So I was going to bring this up because this is my point, which we did talk about off camera. So this Chris Perkins has said quite a lot in interviews that this adventure you can complete it without any combat or any violence. So what did you think about this comment?
I think that's amazing. First off, I think that's great. I think that a lot of people want that from a game. I've had, and there's a lot. I think people are finding sometimes that they just, we've talked about the role playing aspect of D&D becoming much more prevalent. I think from actual plays and that sort of prevalence of those sort of critical roles and high rollers where they are very role play heavy, and it's really critical and to the how successful they are, and that's sort of translated into home games as much as all the other podcasts that we all listen to. And I think that's why this is the time that this can happen. On top of the fact that I don't know if you had this in your games, but there's a lot of times where I have a whole sessions without an encounter, if not multiple sessions without an encounter, because people are just wanting to engage in sort of the politics of the world, or even just having a shopping episode, those sorts of things people just enjoy, and maybe it's the world we're living in at the time as well, that sort of escapism and just acting and playing around in your world and not having something awful happen, or someone, people being in peril or anything of that ilk. It is part of what D&D is about, is that escapism, and I think that's great that they've acknowledged it and made it part of this story, and it seems right for this sort of setting as well. Whereas politics heavy Feywild is all very all about sort of politics and about emotions, as we've said, and all those sorts of things kind of all work well towards that sort of play.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you're right. I think out of all the modules that they've produced in terms of adventure stuff, this makes the most sense for it to be non-combatant or no resorting to violence per se. What I found was interesting is that a lot of people commented on it going, "Ooh, I don't think you can have a D&D game without some sort of conflict." The mechanics obviously are geared towards having encounters, having combat stuff, but I agree with you. I think what we've seen quite a lot from streams, and a way to demonstrate role-playing games, isn't having half an hour to an hour of people going, okay, I want to hit the creature, roll dice, but I can do this, and this, whereas obviously in a video game this is all sort of automated, and it's fairly not straightforward, but fairly sort of like, when you're in the game, obviously it makes sense, but if you're watching it, it's a little bit tedious, because obviously people get rules wrong, and you don't want to, get in fact. But I think for this, I got very much, I don't know if you've played Hamilton, Undertale at all.
I haven't. I don't know it.
No, so it's a video game that came out a little while ago by Toby Fox, and the idea is that you are a small child who's in this land, and again, very similar vibes, like all is not what it seems, and there's a story about humans are monsters, and you are the chosen, etc. But you can play that whole game without killing anything, and you're forever low level as a result, and you're very tempted to swing, hit a sword, or anything like that. But the game remembers your choices. So when you get to the end and you have the good ending or the bad ending, depending on what you do, if you replay it, it will tell you that, well, they know you killed them in a previous game. It will say that on the screen to you, and it is a bit like, oh, shocking. Like it remembers all your choices, and even if you go to delete it, it will say stuff like, deleting it you won't forget your mistakes. It kind of says like, you can delete it all you want, but you will remember what you did. And I'm just like, oh.
Wow. So, right, that's really.
I highly recommend it. They've got a sequel that's just come out called Delta Rune. But to go back to it, I think for me, I quite like having bits of combat if I built my character for that. Like I've prepared for that. But with something like this, I know that Chris Perkins was talking about, like, you have very charming villains. You're as adventurers, you don't want to kill the villains. Why would you kill something that you find entertaining and stuff? Like, even if they're doing bad things, is there some way you can get around it? And reading through, again, not going to spoil this per se, but going through the villains themselves and what could happen to them. If you kill them, great, but if you don't, there is repercussions for them. And I quite like that, like, because it does feel very fairy tale like. They get their comeuppance, which is not necessarily they're dead. It's more like they've been exiled or they run away, knowing that worse is yet to come. And I think there's something about that. But I guess it's interesting because I would say, and maybe this is controversial, there are other RPG systems that don't use violence or have that mechanic for doing stuff like that. Like we were talking about before, that idea of role playing through a conversational style.
Yeah.
Like we've all been in sessions where we've done the conversational. It's been a brilliant role play session, but nobody's rolled a dice at all because it didn't feel appropriate to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
So there is, and I'm gonna get the system wrong, but I've played a few systems by J Dragon. So there's like Wander Home and Sleepaway, and the idea is like a conversational style. So you would have tokens instead, and you'll have a set of moves essentially. So if you a normal move doesn't cost anything, so you can say I do this, and it's in conversation, and you can discuss how you do it. A strong move is a move where you pay a token to do that move, and it's like something usually heroic or something like that. But then you also have weak moves, which you can get a token, but they're usually horrible moves, like you insult someone or you lash out or something like that. And using those because of your different archetypes that you're playing, it's interesting because then you have to go, I have to do this in order to play a hard move later. And it was a very different way of playing for it, and I wasn't sure about it at first, but I quite like the idea that it's about the resources you have for giving out and taking tokens and stuff, and it's a conversational style, and it's not much in terms of discussion. You're not saying like, because you're still in character and goes, I'm going to make this kind of move, etc. So I wonder if that would work better if you're playing a game that's not about combat. But that all said, I love everything they've done with the Feywild, and I love this sort of idea. I'd love to see it. I'd love to try it. I'd love to you probably have to say to your players, we're going to try it without combat, and you have to say to your players, we're going to try things. You need to think outside the box, because you can't go, my sword is out, I stab.
Yeah, that's exactly, I don't like this anymore. Done. It's no, I totally agree, and I think you the only thing that when you're saying those mechanics that it makes you think is just like when you're in a conversation with someone, when you're normally with a conversation with someone, I could see like I wouldn't just insult them to gain benefits. Do you know what I mean? It seems a bit like it feels like those mechanics. The problem with those mechanics is that you are trying to mechanize something that is very natural and everyday, isn't it, as well? Whilst I'm not out fighting with swords all day, every day. I don't know about yourself, Fiona, maybe you are. But
let me just get... No, I don't.
But, so there's something to that. But the fact is, I kind of understand that why do I need to mechanize something that we all understand and can do? Like, your point is like, you're right, you have these sessions when you're RPing and you kind of well, in our Curse of Strahd one, I had to convince the lady of the town to help us get some silver for our swords because we thought we were going to go fight some werewolves. And so I just sort of said what I thought I would say to convince this lady to give me the swords and the silver, one of her silver cutlery sets or something like that, she doesn't need. And the DM says, oh, you did a really good job, so just roll persuasion with advantage, sort of thing. And you think, yeah, okay, I will do. But then, and you do, and I'm not questioning it, like,
no, of course
negatively. Not. And I've done that as well. But you kind of do think as well, there's part of you that goes, actually, you've just done so well, like, yeah, you get them. Do you know what I mean? And actually, if I felt like I would be convinced, or the character I'm portraying would be convinced by that, then I think it's fair that you just say, yeah, that you get what you want, and then that can just be a really natural thing. But it takes a lot of work and a lot of
I think that's a very good point, which actually I can briefly talk about as well. So obviously in the Wild Beyond The Witchlight, there is a very small section about beginning the adventure and running the campaign, which is about, as a new DM, what information can you share with your players?
Yes.
So what was I saying?
Technical pause.
It's totally fine. Yeah. So there is a small section that they have in Wild Beyond, which is for new DMs, and it's quite fun because I did predict it would be quite a short section, just like in Tasha's. It's like you can choose your own origins, and it's a 1 page. But it's about, like, what information do you share with your players? Do you say that, it's looking rough, or all these things? And I think it's very useful to have that.
Yeah, it's a bit the new story information, important information that doesn't appear in box text and stuff like that. Yeah, I think I think that's that. But I think, going back to what you're saying, I think you do need to sit down with your players at the beginning and say, hey, we are playing a game, but the success and stuff like that, again, we can just discuss it between ourselves, because sometimes you don't need dice to roll. Like you said, sometimes you can just go through it and judge it. But obviously, I guess I've always gone for that thing, was that if there is any sort of action
which there is a small chance that it won't work, then you roll a dice. But then the problem, the issue that new GMs come up with, they're like, oh, well, maybe we need to roll dice for everything. And that really slows down the campaign. But I think when you're streaming a game, you definitely, as I'm sure you have as a GM, and certainly I have, I've just gone only when it matters, when you know there's a big chance of and I'm happy to go, oh, that's very convincing. But sometimes as a player, I'd be like, oh, I want to use this particular skill, and I want to do it, and I'll be like, I do this, going, and they go, oh yeah, you do it, and they go, oh no, I actually wanted to fail it, which is maybe it's just the role player in me, is that I don't mind giving it all to fate and just seeing how it goes and stuff. But I think having that conversation with your players beforehand, saying, hey, there may be some sessions where you never roll dice, or you roll one roll, something like that, and that's okay, because that's how we're playing this. And obviously you can, I guess, because there's always that thing where you can ask for a roll, but as a player I tend not to do that, but you can always ask for it, I guess, and if players really want to do that, but I guess just having that conversation at the start and just
and I think, as you said, if it's not like, and if it's just like you just want to, you can see that when you've got there's going to be conflicted points that you feel like you will roll for. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but maybe it would be, if I use the spoons example, maybe they're really covered, they're spoons, and so you've really got to try, and you've done a really good job, but it really is going to land on if they're having a good mood today or not, and that's what the dice is for, if they're in a giving mood or not, or if... Yeah, I don't know. There is, I totally,
I think to reframe it a little bit for you, it's that's more sort of like, they know, everyone in Barovia knows that if they seem to be helping the adventurers, and that is found out, then there's a lot of stuff on there. So that could be the more pressing point, rather than it's not necessarily about the silver, it's the fact that they're shown to help you.
Yes,
that looks bad as well. So there are different ways to reframe it. But anyway, 100%. But I think anyway. What's another thing that you've really enjoyed about Wild Beyond The Witchlight? Getting back to that.
Yes, getting back to it. I think the things we've got to definitely talk about are the new playable races and the backstories, and with that, there's a third part to it, which is the new character, the sort of bonds, flaws, and traits, personality traits section, which is quite fun. So there's some good things there. So yes, I don't know which one. Well, we can start on either. There's the Herringen and there's the Fairies, isn't there? Basically, the two.
So I was going to suggest we do Fairies first. So I find them really interesting as a concept.
Get a little photo up of what they've got. So these are their fairies. There they are.
Look at them.
Yeah, no, they're and interesting. They're not what I would assume be a tiny. They're not considered tiny, they're considered small, which is kind of interesting, which Chris Perkins was saying, so that you can get armour for them everywhere and all that sort of stuff, which I think's fine. But I think if I was going to play it, I would allow people to make them tiny, and I just sort of, because it feels, I don't know, you just imagine Tinkerbell, don't you? Do you know what I go? And they're like that high and sit on your shoulder and stuff like that. But great little, great addition, and obviously clearly, it's called the Land of the Fairies, so it makes sense, doesn't it, really? That they're in there.
Yeah, so I think, from my understanding, is that fairy is like an umbrella term, and they it's so funny because they talked about stuff like, they're a bit like pixies, sprites, or even brownies. And of course, in my head, as a UK woman of a certain age, someone was a brownie.
Yes. It's like, wait, so we're all going to have to wear woggles and and
but
sell
now,
cookies.
But now you're now thinking of a Girl Scout campaign. I'm just saying that sounds amazing in the
To be fair, I could see the travelling adventure party being a group of brownies, or Girl Scouts for the Americans. That's what they are for the Americans. Just turning up at this carnival and ending up getting lost in the Feywild, it seems.
Well, yeah, because obviously, again, we'll talk about more about the carnival in a second, but that idea that this carnival comes around every 8 years, so being able to go back as an adult or as a I think they're called rangers, or there's definitely guides, rangers, young leaders, and then brown owl. You could go.
Arcala. Sorry.
Anyway, amazing. Just looking at we always love a good table. So you've got obviously Fey characteristics.
Yes.
So you can have stuff like your wings are like those of a bird rather than the butterfly wings, which is good.
Yeah.
Your legs are insectile, which sounds terrifying.
I know, I'm not a fan of that.
The one that does get me though is that you smell like fresh brownies. I don't know if I would like that.
Really, I love the smell of brownies though, as in the food stuff.
Yeah, of course, rather than
clarifying. Just want to clarify that. Yeah.
Oh, but I just like the idea that every time you go into a room, people are like going, like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, actually, when you put it that way, it's slightly weird. If people just start getting too close to you because they just want to smell the sort of baking flavour that you've got.
It's like, what aftershave have you got on? It's like
brownie.
No,
it's brownie.
It's like the new Lynx, but not. Anyway, but going back to your point, so obviously they are small creatures, but they do get at level 5. They get enlarge reduce as a spell,
yes,
which they can cast. I think it's once per long rest. So they could in fact shrink down for, I think it's like 10 minutes. I can't remember large reduce. So they can do that. But I think the most important thing is that they do have a flight speed. So they are, I would say, obviously. 1 minute for enlarge reduce, brilliant. But they also have a flight speed of 30 feet,
which is always useful. As
always,
we all know, every time you get a character that can fly.
Bloody Aarakocra. So actually, I think this is really interesting because I guess with this particular module, playing a fairy makes sense because obviously it is geared towards the Feywild. There's going to be different things. I always thought if anyone played a creature that was at level 1 that had a flight speed, previous modules might not work because obviously there'll be stuff that's further away or traps. I can get over it because I'm an Aarakocra. So my house rule is I ban Aarakocra from my games.
Really?
Yeah, because again it's just like because I feel that's a bit cheaty at level 1 that you could just fly over things. Whereas here with the Feywild setting and stuff like that, I'm actually thinking, okay, they will have built in for this. There will be some encounters that 100%. Flying will help or be hindered. So I'm like, this is fine.
And also when combat's not a key thing, I mean, maybe it's less of an issue. I think you can always, and also going back to Aarakocra, you can always see the high rollers. We always talk about them on the show because I know you are a fan of them as well, and you've got the poster in your background there.
I do. It's just hidden behind my thing, but yes, it's there.
Okay, it is there. And that you just don't. You have an Aarakocra with one wing, or there's you've got an issue that then maybe they can overcome or gain back or something like that. Is always a way around it. Or
agreed.
They don't know how to fly. Like they've been brought up, not as an Aarakocra, if you know what I mean, sort of a Mowgli style story or something, and then they learn to fly or something.
Oh my God, you brought up with like a group of penguins. And
yes, I love it. We've got someone actually in our series that's coming out, the We Are Not Heroes series, who's playing an Aarakocra penguin, which is great. And we're giving them a swim speed instead, literally. So
perfect.
That's how it's working.
That makes so much more sense. But moving on then, the Harrigan.
Yes. There you go. I should change to a rabbit folk. Yay.
They're so cute. So I'm sure you knew this as well, but listening to all those sort of tidbits and stuff, apparently the Harrigan weren't going to be a playable race. No. But they saw the artwork and they were like, everyone wants to play them.
Yes, because they know that everyone loves Red Bull, and that's why more mouse folk, more rabbit folk. Just give us. We just want Root the game, don't we? To be honest, which is what we've already got. But it's just we want more of that in our D&D.
Absolutely. And yes, just looking at the stuff here. So obviously, hair trigger, you get your bonus to your initiative rolls. It's always good. Lucky footwork. When you fail a dexterity saving throw, you can use your reaction to roll a d4 and add it to save, potentially turning it into a success. It's really good. You can't. It's a reaction.
And I just love the play on the sort of rabbit's foot being lucky. I just kind of like that. I love it.
I liked because obviously the hair trigger one obviously is the other one for the.
Yes.
I just like that, and then rabbit hop. They have changed this because obviously we did an episode on the folks of the Feywild stuff. They've changed the rabbit hop one. It's much better now because before when they were talking about it, you would have odd numbers that came up. So you'd add like an extra 7 feet or something like that. And you're like,
I remember you talking about this, and it's just like, how do I work that out? Yeah, exactly.
So what they've done now is that as a bonus action, you can jump a number of feet equal to 5 times your modifier, your proficiency modifier, which is always going to be a 5, 10, whatever. Yeah. So it's like, thank God. Oh.
Yes, that just saves everyone those sort of. Well, you just round up, don't you, or down.
You would. Again, I know currently most people are playing online or distance, whatever, so it's unlikely you'll have maps, but I just love the idea that I'm 7.5 feet away, so nobody cares. You're still going to be hit by it. But yeah, the artwork for those is very beautiful.
It's great. They are great, and it's nice to just have more options on the table for all of these, for more playable characters. I think as going to Dragon's Duel, we have it so that you can play all the races when you make a character. And we just added to this now. We've got 40. There's basically 40 types that you can play. I think we roll 2d20s to sort of figure out what character you're going to play. But now I've got to figure out how I'm going to make 42 work on the dice. So thanks for that.
Cheers.
Because I'm now having to divide that. What's that going to be? Is that divisible by? Are going to be loads of d4s, or is it going to be a few d8s? That's what's annoying me. More to the point. But yes, really good to have them on there. Yeah.
So do you want to talk us through the character traits then? Because I only just saw this just as you sort of mentioned it. So tell us about anything that sort of jumped out of you about these ones then.
I liked them. There's this sort of personality trait. I don't want to give too much of them away, but there's like there's some that, what I like about it is it plays on that perfect mix of the sort of creepy horror that there is of the sort of whimsical world of the Feywild, and also the whimsical part of it. So like. There's personality traits. Good music makes me weep like a baby.
Oh, I know.
Which, to be fair, that happens to me as a sort of, I'm one of those weepy people. I watch a movie, I cry, anything like that. I never lost my childlike sense of wonder.
A small child. Oh no. We must protect them from all the hardships of the adult world.
Yeah. And there's another one which is I'm haunted by fey laughter that only I can hear, though I know it's just my mind playing tricks on me. Yeah. So then it just turns the corner with one of those.
It's like and I think what's interesting, I know later on, obviously when you're looking at ideals, bonds and flaws, or certainly it looks like only ideals have it really. It just says like good or chaotic or something like that. Yeah. Everything else doesn't, because it used to have it for quite a few of them.
Yes.
But
that's true.
I like that. Yeah, you're right. It could be, and obviously with all these things on tables, you can easily just pick them rather than roll. But exactly. I like the idea that it's not the same for everyone, and you can. I mean, I'm haunted by fey laughter that only I hear, although I know it's just my mind playing tricks on me. That person could really enjoy it. They could be like the comedian or the class clown, and then nobody answers them. Like, I've got my back, even though we'd be like, you can hear people laughing. Like, I just looking at it, my favourite one just from that personality trait is that when I have a new idea, I get wildly excited about it until I come up with another better idea, and I'm like, well, I feel red.
Hello. You could have just acted me, as they say. Yeah.
That sounds like both of us before the show. So.
Exactly, 100%. And whilst doing this, going, okay, so when am I going to fit in doing my Wild Beyond The Witchlight campaign? Because I need to do this now, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was like, oh my goodness.
And then also, the ideals, the rule of 3, we talked about that before. So, that's in there. Wanderlust and friendship, lovely. And then some good bonds. The Witchlight Carnival brings up that again, and some natural stuff, and then some flaws. I usually lose track of time, which is, I know that one, but also is a very sort of, that sort of fits with that Feywild thing. And that was it. I'm always changing my mind. Well, almost always.
Always. Yeah, I like. That's I think this is just props to the writers and stuff like that. I know obviously really they work months on this, making it right. But again, you can tell there's so much character in such a small sentence. And as an improviser and stuff like that, you get given something like that, and you're like, that's a whole character.
That is
it is a motto that I can be like, this is my line. Yeah. And you build off that and do it. It's brilliant.
I think that's the thing. I mean, D&D's always had it, but I feel like the later games that we're getting in 5e now are really getting a concept together, like really holding a concept and then bringing that forward. So like, I mean, there may be some of them are very obvious, but they really do like take them to another level, like the Ravenloft. They just went, it's gothic horror, and we're going to take that to its extreme in however many guises, from the campy to the very dark, and they're really good at, I think, putting those together. And this has got that. It feels, as you said, in all the writing and all the characterization, and as we talked about the sort of the role playing guides, really being clear on what the concepts are to give people that ability to then draw on them in their own way. Because once you've got something clear and obvious of like what this is about, you can just go with it, can't you? And roll all the way through the campaign with ease, if that's what you've got to play with.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think just to quickly touch on, because you talked about the backgrounds themselves. So we've got the Feylost and the Witchlight Hand, and I really love the Feylost. So the idea is that you grow up in the Feywild after disappearing from your home plane as a child, and there's various different ways that you've been spirited away, but you've sort of you've returned, but obviously you didn't come back unchanged, which is always a great line, I find. And this idea that you've lived in this place, and maybe don't remember it, because obviously we've talked about the Feywild. Obviously, you might not remember your time there at all, which is also scary. But that you have this sort of distinguishing feature called a Fey mark, and it could be something as like your eyes have iridescent swirls. You have long whiskers like those of a cat. You're like, ooh, but all these things because you've had the Feywild, you've given to the Feywild, and it's come into you. And again, that sort of unknowable, like interesting change. Like we've talked about. Again, on another podcast, we've talked about like how don't get the fairies, don't spirit away with the fairies because you might not come back, and that idea that an 8-year-old child can go into the Feywild, come back as an 80-year-old man, or come back and all their friends have moved away or passed away, or 80-year-olds, absolutely, and it's always those cautionary wives' tales and stuff. But then to have something like this, I just But then I will say, sorry, just briefly. Feywild mark number 2, you have a sweet scent like that of nectar or honey. More smells again.
I know.
No.
But it fits with it because it's that candy cane Disneyland fairy tale world. So it feels right. It's all those sort of, as I said, it has the emotional response. That's got to also go with all these. It's very sensual, isn't it? It's a very sensual place. The Feywild. It's about. I don't know if the way that Matt Mercer plays it is the right way, because it's the only campaign I actually have properly watched. I know there's one by the Roll Together that I'm about to start actually, because I'm trying to catch up with their stuff. But I remember when Matt Mercer played it, he talked about that when you moved westward it was always sun setting, and when you moved eastward it was always sunrise. It was always dawn and dusk, and I sort of all those sorts of, I don't know, it's that sort of, so it's a very visual and everything's like overly vibrant colours. So then it kind of makes sense that everything would also be like really rich smells. Even when you get to the bogs, they'd be so boggy and peaty smell, and that sort of smoky,
like very exaggerated versions of them.
Yeah, exactly. So it just feels, I don't know, it makes sense in some respects, doesn't it? But
I totally agree. I think it's just me going.
I know. It's like, I get it. I totally get it. It's a bit like what was that book? And they made it Perfume, I think it was. The movie.
Oh, of course, the person who kills.
Yes,
the perfect
exactly.
thing. Yeah, I've remember. Oh, anyway, that's a great film. But yeah, just to quickly finish off. So in the Feylost, you have a thing called Feywild Visitor.
I love that.
When you're in a trance or something like a spirit of the Feywild may pay you a visit if the DM wishes it, and you're like, of course they wish it.
Yes,
I'm ready. I'm ready to give you a vision of some sort. But yeah, I just again that idea of it, because obviously we've done it ourselves in role playing games where we've gone, oh, your god wants to have a word with you. Oh, this is happening, or this is happening, and this is just another way of having that connection, which is not necessarily related to your class, I think. So it is if you're playing a rogue or a ranger or anything like that, doesn't have necessarily a deity attached to your bit. It's like, okay, well, here's a satyr. Yeah, exactly. here's a dryad who's like chilling. And I quite like it, and it just gives you it says it can contain any number of things from messages to and insights to nonsense and red herrings at the DM's discretion. So I thought, ooh, I guess it's for me. I was like, oh, you really should play with them and stuff like that. Yeah. But again, it's up to your discretion how much you want to do that. But I like that being able to do that. That's not necessarily related to this is your purpose. This is this is part of your background. So
it's just a bit of fun, or you just play it just like they could just be. If you were doing this as an actual play, if you're doing it for people's consumption, but as much as for your home games, you could just see them as just like real light relief moment, just to even comment on the day or something like that. I can imagine this character just turning up and going, well, you made it right, proud of yourself, didn't you, earlier, sort of thing, and just like kind of you doing that sort of, I don't know, I could see that sort of trickster element that you could really have fun with as a DM to your players, and really just like give them a bit of comic relief with that. So I think there's a real...
give them that monologue moment. Yeah, absolutely. I quite like that. And then looking on quickly to the Witchlight hand. So this is somebody who works at the carnival. And you crept into the carnival as a child or your youth and never looked back. And like we've all had those dreams of like running away with the circus, and that's what it is here. And what's interesting about this adventure is having that. If your characters, some of them are. I don't want to say normal, but some of them are coming from different planes but some of them are playing witch hands. They will have a different information, a different starting point to others, which we've seen on a couple of streams actually. But for them,
that can work really well with the campaign, and just you can see how they can easily become. If you're making a new campaign or you're bringing someone new into the campaign, well, there's a really great lead-in, because all the other adventurers could end up going to the carnival, and this person, the Witchlight hand just joins the crew because of that reason, sort of thing. That you could bring them in that way quite easily. So this
absolutely. I like that as a new player thing, is that they have some information, so they'll have something that your players will want. The other players will want. So I conclude like that. And they also have, similar to having the Feywild visitor, they have something called the Carnival Companion. So it's a confidant that they have, somebody that you trust. So in my head, again, it's just because again, as a child, I've read loads of things. I don't know if you ever read like Darren Shan, Cirque de Freak at all.
No, I didn't. No.
No. So it's a vampire thing. So don't worry. I've got my fan written. But the whole point is Darren Shan is writing about himself as writers want to do, becoming a vampire at 14 and running away to join the circus, and then having his mentor who's also part of the circus, and there's all these other, again, travelling sort of thing, but it's that idea of having a family, which is what comes across here, is that you have this confidant, someone that is your mentor or your trainer or something. And it could be anyone. It could be a retired performer, or even like an old blink dog, or just anything like that, and you can work with your DM to see what that is. And you can even go for like a harmless magic wisp of light.
And we all know who that reminds me of, right? Come on.
yeah.
Wake up! Hello! Hey! Sorry. That's what it just made me think of when I was like, okay, with Zelda. It's fine.
You have to, again, I mean, this whole thing gives Zelda vibes off, doesn't it? Like proper Breath of the Wild. So, so both of those sort of backgrounds are pretty good for this, I think. Like, obviously, the Witch Hand works very well for this particular one, less so outside of it. But Feylost, if you're having any campaigns on different things, again, I think that would be a really good asset to have. And then it would be a really cool way as a way like, hey, we need to go to the Feywild now because I got told through a vision with a centaur. Let's
exactly.
go.
We got to get there. Yeah, and I think you could bring them into loads of. I think you could bring the Witchlight hand, maybe not so much, but I mean, you could even have them if you wanted to as something, a carnival person. Just rebrand it for any sort of carnival.
Of course.
And then at the Feylost, you could still even just use it, couldn't you? In any campaign, I think that could work.
Yeah, you could always reflavor it or reblend it. Yeah, because that idea of having like you work here are the tools of like you work at a theatre or a travelling show, a touring company. Your mentor is the old light technician who literally just goes literally just clap on. Just a light cantrip, and that's it.
And exactly. And the old blink dog could be the sort of the theatre cat who always used to chase the mice, sort of thing. That sort of thing. Yeah.
The Mr. Mistopheles of our touring company.
Fantastic. Awesome. Love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on from that cat's reference. And so I'll tell you something that I've really enjoyed though, and it literally took me till today to realise this, is that I thought from, again, my favourite book of all time, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which I sleep next to. Not really, but I like that idea.
It's under my pillow.
Under the pillow, just like, So in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, there is a domain of dread called the Carnival. And in my head, I just assumed that the Wild Beyond the Witchlight was just an extension of that, and I assumed this whole bit would be a domain of dread. But then there's always these references to it's a domain of delight instead. And what I discovered is that there isn't just one carnival. There is, of course, two carnivals. There is the Shadowfell inspired version of the carnival, but there's also this Feywild inspired version of the carnival. So a mirror image of each one, and they are very separate, very different. And before Wild Beyond the Witchlight, these two carnivals met, and in the what would then become the Feywild one was Isolde, an Eladrin Fey who ran it, and then in the Shadowfell one was the aforementioned Mr. Witch and Mr. Light, as I think how did you pronounce it? Shadowkai elves?
Shadowkai, yeah, because they're Shadowkai elves, yeah. Which is why because when you mentioned this to me, I was like, oh, that now makes sense. So I was thinking, why are these? They're a Shadowfell based elf. Mm-hmm. Why are they running a Feywild carnival? So that's now makes sense.
Exactly. So every so often these carnivals meet, or they met for the first time, and so the owners obviously talked, and they sort of said, obviously, because running a carnival is a tricky business, and they said, wouldn't it be great if we just swapped roles? Because obviously each of them wanted to try something new, so they did. And you can read all about Isolde and the Dreadlord of that domain, which I won't spoil, but it's very interesting what happens to her in this sort of the Shadowfell. It's just called the Carnival, and then obviously here in the Witchlight Carnival, you've got Mr. Witch and Mr. Light, and as they sort of went round in the Feywild, moving this magical carnival, they grew to love it, and they grew to realise that this is where they wanted to be, and so they now secretly dread the next time the carnivals meet, when they would have to switch back. So that's at the back of their minds at all times, is that they are realistically frauds of this carnival. They are the owners, but they are they're almost like temporary owners until Isolde comes back, and they have to go back. And I just love that as because it ultimately the carnival itself, I would say, doesn't have any impact on the overall story. Like, it's a sandbox for you to play, but if you found out stuff about that, and the rest of the carnival knows, that could be the end of that carnival. That's the end of the Fae crossing into Prismeer, and it's that whole sort of like you said, like almost like a political system in a way, almost that sort of a micro society. Like, it's built on this thing which could easily crumble if somebody revealed that they're not who they say they are. Which I think, I love that.
It's really sort of juicy sort of DM stuff that you could just have in your back pocket, that you could that someone might just stumble upon. The funny thing, and I mentioned this when we did the hags, my DM when I years ago did a campaign for us, and he then took us to a carnival which had a hag that was controlling the carnival owner. Well, the carnival owner made a deal with the hag to make it give him sort of funds and give him magical abilities so that he could do all these magic tricks and make a better carnival in exchange for children, because it's a hag. And actually, playing around in the carnival that they made was really great fun. But when we then started finding it, we accidentally there's something fishy going on here, and we went and snuck into their trailer and found their diary that told us all about it. And you can just imagine a similar thing happening here. There's sort of sneak into Mr. Because that's what D&D players do, isn't it? You just say, well, there's Mr. Witch's trailer there. He's not in at the moment. Let me pick that up.
I guess we'll wait inside for him and go through all of his drawers.
Exactly. Because we've all played Skyrim, and the only way to play that game is just draw, in, out, mine. It's bread and cheese, but I want it.
It's mine now. It's mine.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can imagine that you could tempt your players into finding that knowledge out if you so wish.
Absolutely. And just looking at, again, won't go into too much detail about this, but the hags do have an influence on the carnival itself, which I think ties us nicely onto the different ways to start this adventure. So do you want to take us through the Lost Things opener?
Yes, so there's the two openers. So the first one is, as you said, there's and again, this also fits with the sort of more the way they're moving forward with this game, sort of changing up the way that they actually that you can play a game. They're having this. So the first one is what they're calling a non-traditional way of doing it. I'm just beginning adventure. I'm just trying to find the section. But so the Lost Things is that they get to try and give the characters a strong personal investment in the story. So it's really playing again to this sort of role-playing heavy character background and story heavy sort of gameplay. And so each character in the adventuring party visited the Witchlight Carnival when they were a child. In fact, they snuck in without buying a ticket and had something stolen from them. And so fate brings the characters together as adults, united by this common goal to go and retrieve what they've lost. So as we said, it arrives every 8 years. Is that right? Every 8 years it comes back, this carnival? So so that kind of makes sense. Maybe they were 10-year-olds, now they're 18, or maybe they were 12-year-olds and now they're 20 or something like that, or maybe it's been 16 years, maybe they just missed their opportunity last time. You could see that working, and that sounds I don't know, that sounds quite a fun like hook, this real and you were saying about the lost items that they don't get inspiration until they retrieve them. You can't get inspiration until you retrieve them, which is quite incredible.
It's interesting because I don't know how often you use inspiration in your campaigns. Like I've used it on and off when generally somebody's made me laugh, which happens quite a lot, as you can probably imagine. Or usually I go, it's your birthday, you get birthday inspiration. But I find it interesting because obviously it's that idea is that once you gain it, you're like, oh. And so maybe you don't realise that is missing from you until you get it back, and you're like, I've been almost, I didn't realise half a person. Exactly that. It's like, I'm sure there's a story about that where someone realised they were actually half a person, and they realised that they are a twin or something like that, and they get their twin back, and some stuff like that. But I think that idea of having the investment, having you were 8, it feels very much like not Stranger Things. It's a little bit like Stranger Things, but not quite. It's what's it called? It. The Stephen King horror films. Obviously, they start as kids and then they defeat the evil, and then they come back as adults and defeat the evil again. That's the sort of image I got, and also. Stand By Me was the other one I got the image of. Like the kids are coming together because there's something else. So again, it's like you could easily set off. You could even run the session 0 as 8-year-olds. Yes. If there's no combat, this have that little pre-mini episode of stuff as they do stuff, and and then you're like, okay, now we set the stage, and you could even have that as you do it later on as flashbacks or anything like that. But I think there's something magical about playing a younger version of yourself or your character stuff. Like I'm sure you've seen on Instagram and TikTok recently, there's a lot of these things going, speaking to my 7-year-old self, and there's like 7-year-olds like, oh, will I ever get to be a great famous singer? And they go, no, but you're a voiceover artist now. And like, oh, and you're like, fuck off. But it's that sort of concept, like you can have that almost like Kingdom Hearts-esque type thing where you're like, you are now a bigger person and you are now ready to take on the troubles you had as a kid. You're brave enough now. I like that. I now really want to play this game because I now want to do it that way and have do the whole carnival bit just as the children and really enjoy the sort of fun of it and like maybe gain little insights that you maybe don't quite understand yet, so you could play a little bit more loose, and then they come back again and then they can try and follow those little breadcrumbs. Oh, I love it. That's a really great idea. Thanks. But looking at the lost things table as well, because I think some people maybe are thinking too practical about what it is. Maybe you've lost a physical thing, but actually looking at it, it is stuff like you've lost the ability to smile. Oh, as a small child, that's awful. Oh, your handwriting is illegible. I think I went to this carnival. I might already.
Look at that mess. Oh no! That is how I write. I'm meant to be an architect, but Jesus Christ, it's terrible. Sorry.
Like the ability to keep secrets, always like little things that make you we all know people who are like this, and actually what if this was taken from you? And it feels very much like, again, Little Mermaid-esque, like they've taken their voice, or very fairy tale, I'm taking something that's like an important part of who you are, and you might not know about it. You might feel incomplete until the puzzle piece is back. So
and you could always play that whole point that it's that there's that fairy tale that does it a lot when actually you gain it back that you didn't need it in the first place or something like that. There's always those sort of things you could play as well, couldn't you? That actually, I definitely would say for that one it would be the sense of fashion. Your character suffering from this loss has no fashion sense, and I'm like, bullshit. I think I'd like that as an idea. Is like you come back to you go, you can have it back and go, no. It's basically She's All That, isn't it?
Oh my god, it is She's All That. But I just like that idea. Is like, here, you have your fashion sense back. I goes, no, I was already fashionable all along.
I was normcore, by the way. Did you not even realise?
Exactly. Oh, yeah. So I find that it's a really interesting and a different way to set up a campaign. Like you said, like let's try younger versions of ourselves that then become into these amazing adventures. And like obviously, you could even say it's like, okay, you're playing kid versions of yourselves which won't have any levels or anything like that. But then you go, okay, from that experience, what does your career become? Do you become the paladin that you wanted to be, or do you feel changed by it in some way? And giving that, you could even change it between sessions. So
I really liked it. No, it's just lovely things like that. I really, it's really great. And then on the flip side of it, there is the more traditional. They actually even call it the traditional setting, which is fine and it works well. But
it works.
I think, and it's good for if you don't want that sort of, if you're not going for that sort of campaign, you do want to go down to some more traditional route. There is just there's a problem in the Feywild in this location, and you go fix it basically. And there's a quest giver that helps you along, really, which is. But the way that I'm even talking about it is explaining my thoughts on it. It's just like, I don't even need that shit. Just get to the fun stuff, which is I've lost these parts of it, which seems quite amazing.
I think the only thing I'd say about it, because so it is like an ancient warlock who's saying that their archfey patron hasn't been in contact, so maybe you should go check that out, which again, totally fine. But what I will say, what I like about it is that if you do that thing and you complete whatever the big quest is, if you come back, obviously this person might have died in that time, so they would have handed off their treasure or their rewards to other stuff, other their associates or descendants and stuff like that. So you could be gone 100 years and they come back and go, oh yes, he left this for you.
You get your Back to the Future 2 moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, when they go, I've got this paper for you to be here at 1955 at 10 p.m. or something like that, and that sort of. That's
exactly that, and the treasure for that is pretty cool. But you could also, it says you can also change that, and give it something like because it does say like most adventurers want treasure, and I was like, yeah, that's true. They don't do something for nothing, but so it's a very interesting but like as you said, traditional stuff where, as you can tell, both me and Hamilton are like, let's go be children in a carnival.
Exactly. I want to gain my sense of smiles back, my sense of fashion back, and my smile.
You always make us smile with your fashion sense.
Good. That's probably true. Okay, then there was one other thing I want to talk about.
Please.
But it's very spoilery, so I want to put a double warning here. Double warning of spoilers, which is so that's it. You've had your warning now. There is a part in one of the sections. So in Yon, there's a place called Motherhorn. And in a place called Motherhorn, there is a theatre.
Yes.
And there is where tragic plays are performed daily for Endwin Moongrave to enjoy. The characters might choose to perform on stage for one or more of the following reasons, whatever the reasons are. But basically, the characters who choose to perform play are met by the Master of Ceremonies, called Stage Fright, who's a goblin. Great. And each player will then get these performers' roles. Now, this obviously appeals to me. It's very Dragon's Duel, because we obviously do our sort of play out a classic D&D scene, and we give people roles like you are. We've had a mangy wizard and a cowardly sorcerer and stuff like that, and they've got people a drunken satyr, a failed magician, a high and mighty princess. A cowardly noble. So it's just playing off all the things that I love from what I've made of Dragon's Duel, and then they give you. Very much like the Once Upon a Time sort of games, if you played that game, where you make a story. Game. Yeah. And we've used that once on Dragon's Duel as well. But they give you a series of lines of dialogue for you to play out that you then are given to all of the players, place it players in a paper bag and give it to your players. Start the play, each player draws a slip of paper from the container.
Yes.
And the stage fright hisses a line to that player's character from the wings. And they must ad-lib the tragedy as they go through, and they can use props and enter and exit scenes and to be fair, I think the people at D&D Beyond, I know they support us D&D Beyond, so I'm sure the D&D people, Chris Perkins, I know you're a fan, because clearly, this is just right up our, it's sort of very similar. I know that great ideas are dime a dozen these days, but it's just a lovely thing. I'm just gonna have to play it because it's just so much fun. There's
definitely, again, just reading that through, that idea that it's in a bag and you take them out. There's definitely, we've done ones which is like three lines from a hat, as an improv, where you start the scene and then you go, well, as my mother used to say, give me that money, you cow,
exactly. Yes,
and exactly. I love that, because obviously you get stuff and you go, oh, interesting. I have to say this aloud. And I love looking at it, saying like, there's that bit where it says like you can go get props, and I think I would do that. It's almost like a taskmaster thing. If I was doing it online, I'd go, okay, go get stuff, and we're gonna do it. And like because I'm fully integrated into online improv, and that idea we can do this stuff. It will totally work, and I get allowing players to be silly to do stuff like that.
Exactly. Well, people, as I found with the show, people absolutely enjoy that sort of stuff. When we have players on, it seems to be. And you were a player at one point, so
I was.
But people do really get involved in it, and it plays off all the things that we do as D&D players. You know, it's just that sort of improvisation, but also just love playing games. You know, it's like as I said, there's Once Upon a Time, but there's also loads of those sort of improv games, but also sort of. Makes me think of like what's that? You know, there's always taking things out of having the additional like bags and having mechanics. It's giving us another mechanic, isn't it? That we've been talking about. And I was just looking at some of them. It's like. Do
you have a favourite one?
Yeah, there's some of them are quite funny. It's like it goes hurts, doesn't it? And you got to just think of something that goes there. And 'tis said that in Valuna they eat such things, and you can just imagine people just. Making up just something that goes well with these sort of things.
I love that. Yeah, that you just have to continue the scene and just say hurts, doesn't it? And then just have to perform it like that. Oh,
my liege, he's dead, and it's very. That just made me think of what's his name? Like sort of. My brain is gone today. Holy Grail and all that sort of stuff.
Of course, very Monty Python, isn't
Monty Python, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It definitely does feel, because obviously you have this person looking down, like judging you. It does feel like Royal Variety performance-esque. So like having that person, that NPC, as a queen like or a royal sort of thing. And just going back on it, I think there is the RPG that comes to my mind about improvising a play is called Forsooth, which is a Shakespeare RPG, which I've yet to play, but I love the idea that it gives you the guidelines about how do you come up with an improvised Shakespeare tragedy and making it sound like that as well. So that's the one that came off the top of my head just looking at that. But
oh my gosh, I'm trying to Google that now. Forsooth Shakespeare RPG. I want this in my life. Where is this?
I'll have to send you it because I've got the physical copy. Which I've
my god, to improvise one of the Bard's greatest lost works. Oh, come on. If you want to play this, call me. I'm doing it. I'd love to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's very much like if anyone's ever seen the improv show Ostentatious, where it's like Jane Austen wrote several books, but we know she actually wrote over 3,000 unpublished manuscripts, including Sense and Sensibility, CSI, all that sort of stuff like that.
Oh, I love it. Oh, fantastic.
So, but I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to come to the end.
Oh, no.
I know. There's so much to talk about. I'm sure we'll come back and talk about more.
Yes.
Like, obviously, we've got the monsters. We've got probably a deeper dive into Hither, Thither, and Yon, and the actual sort of the overarching story about that. But this was just a brief guide. And I will say, as a final signing off point, the one thing I appreciate in this D&D book, and I know it's been in other D&D books, but having a pronunciation guide.
Yes.
Is so important. Because I guess for me as a DM, I'm just going to pronounce it and hope nobody questions it. But because I'm not confident in certain words that come out of my mouth, I go question mark at the end. So I would highly recommend, if you're not so sure, they've got all the main NPCs there and obviously all the new monsters there as well. So you can have a go at practicing that before you announce to your players what it is. And
I'm glad I didn't show you the pronunciation guide on the stream, because it gives away some big spoilers, like super big spoilers.
Look at that. Look at how pro you are.
Luckily. I just realised it now. So I wasn't pro.
It's certainly fine. But Hamilton, I guess we'll just do a sign up. Where can we find you? What are you up to? What big projects are you doing? I know. It's shocking when you have to plug yourself. So. Yes.
If you're listening to the podcast version, then you can find me at on twitch.tv/dragons_duel. If you want to watch a video version of what you're listening to, so you want to see some of the pictures that we've been showing, some of the artwork, come and watch it there again, or just buy the book as you can do. But we normally play a D&D game show, but at the moment we have and in that D&D game show we make characters, and we've done our season 2 where we've made 21 characters. That's right. We made 21 out of all those episodes, and we're now taking those characters on a series of one-shots that lead on from last season's one. It's all very stupid. We played one last week where they were in the mausoleum of Chronepsis, which was
Cool.
Barbar the barbarian, who's basically a Loxodon barbarian king. Went to go get and that was very silly, and it was like Dark Souls meets Monty Python, I guess. And then this week's one is a pirate themed one with the Wrinkly Pirates in an adventure with Ted Danson.
Excellent.
Ted Danson, not Danson for legal reasons.
Yeah, of course.
But it's actually pretty much all combat, but it was, I don't know, it's not silly combat. It's silly combat. It's not serious combat. It's just there's boats falling into each other. There might be a SpongeBob Squarespace monster at some point. There's not giving too much away, but we have from D&D Beyond Millie DM, who plays a brand conscious turtle pirate captain who is the best.
Yes.
There's a great thing that she's named it. The boat's called her name's Old Sheller, the character, and the boat's called Old Sheller's boat. But everyone else gets their name, but 20% smaller than everyone else's, but in the same font and the same colour scheme. And it's just lovely. And like they all get flags, but it's all in the same graphical style, and it's all 20% smaller, getting 20% smaller as it goes down. And it's just like, I loved the idea of a brand conscious pirate, and played it so well. So I'm so excited for people to see that, and that's on Saturday at 8 p.m. And and we've got lots of other things happening on the show, but I won't bore you because I've talked too much.
No, not at all. That sounds amazing. We all love being on brand. Hey, everything is content. Am I right?
Exactly.
So hey. But yeah.
What about you? What
about
have you
me?
been up to?
Me?
Yeah.
Me? Yeah. So my name's Fiona, which I always say as if I've forgotten what my name is, but my name is Fiona, and I run the What Am I Rolling podcast, which is a twice monthly RPG one-shot podcast. As always, it is going very, very well.
Good.
I had to sign an NDA today about something I can't talk about. It's very exciting. They asked me what my rates were and if I had representation, and I said legal, and they went no, and I was like, oh good. So that's
so it's not NDA because you're going to jail.
No, it's not. It's NDA because it's something fun, but I can't talk about it.
Oh my gosh! How
I
can
know.
you do that?
I'm sorry, but it's something that I'm very excited about, but it might not happen, which is a good thing. But the fact I had to sign an NDA makes me feel like
Pretty
I'm
cool.
a somebody now. I know.
That is cool.
And
When will we know?
I don't know is the answer.
Okay,
I hopefully soon. I think we'll see on that
Okay.
front. But I guess the other thing to mention, as well as obviously doing What Am I Rolling stuff, obviously we've got Warhammer coming out just now. We've got a few other bits and pieces. We have DM's Book Club has an offer code at Third Space Gaming, which is your friendly local game store. So if you want to buy any D&D books or any pre-orders for any cool alternate covers, then you can go to their website and you can get 10% off your first order. So you just type in. I forgot to do the thing. DMBC. I don't know. I don't type like that, by the way, but it's like typewriter.
That's how I type.
DMBC.
I've just got a big keyboard, like big in like those old, the big keyboard that you jump around on. I just have one of those.
Oh, like in proper big style, like Tom Hanks
Yeah,
style.
that's what I meant. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That shows how old we are. Anyway, DMBC into checkout for 10% off your order, and it doesn't have to be in D&D books. It could be any RPG books. 1,000-Year-Old Vampire they've got back in stock recently. I saw, which is a great solo RPG. I'd recommend. But also, if you're someone who likes terrain, they can do you terrain. So that's DMBC and Third Space Gaming.
Awesome.
And, yeah, that's
With that, also, I forgot to mention, because we've decided this will become more of a regular feature on Dragon's Duel, the DM's Book Club, so you can find us here every week at Thursday at 9 p.m. British time. Because it's just about to change from BST to so I'm just not gonna. I'm just saying British time now. Whatever it is in the UK.
Just don't say summer. Don't say GMT. It's just not. Yeah. It's just gonna. Because we'll both be like, oh god, for 2 weeks.
Yes,
and
exactly.
And then we're back to normal. So.
That's it. So it's gonna be 9 p.m. Whatever it is in England, and then that means it will be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, apart from 2 weeks because the world is weird, and we'll just ignore that.
And we will all be prepared for it when it happens. We just don't know. Well, I know when it happens. It's after Halloween, but don't worry, that's not happening anytime soon.
That's not
anyway.
We'll let you know then. But that's the point. So you will find us here at that time, and that'd be great. It'd be very exciting. So there you go.
Very exciting.
We don't know what we're doing next week either, do we? So
No.
that's the other classic.
No classic. But I guess we'll do the sign-off, which is your sign-off from Adam Buxton, isn't it? The podcast.
Yes, that's what I just do because it's easy. So, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, love you. Bye.